The year was 2157. Earth was dying. The blue skies had turned gray years ago. The oceans rose, swallowing coastal cities. Wars over the last clean water and food left billions dead. Now less than 500 million humans remained on the planet that once held 10 billion. Susan Hayes stood on the launch platform and looked up at the massive ship. The U.S. Defiant gleamed in the weak sunlight. It was humanity's last real hope. One ship, one chance. "Captain Hayes, they're ready for the final inspection," said Alan Mitchell, her first officer. His face was tired, but his eyes showed determination. Susan nodded. "Let's not keep them waiting." They walked through the airlock and into the ship that would soon carry 60 humans away from Earth forever. The corridors were narrow, designed to save space. Every inch of the Defiant served a purpose. The ship represented 20 years of desperate work by the best minds left on Earth. In the main control room, engineers ran final checks on systems. Scientists packed the last research materials. The air smelled of new metal and nervous sweat. "All systems are green, Captain," reported Scott Williams, the chief engineer. "The Garcia drive is stable. We can leave whenever you give the word." Susan walked to the front viewport and placed her hand against the cool glass. Beyond it lay the stars, distant, cold, and unknown. "The final supply shuttle is docked," said Natalie Summers from her communications station. "All crew are now aboard." "Thank you, Lieutenant," Susan replied. She turned to face her senior staff. "I know we've all said our goodbyes to Earth, but I want to say one more thing before we launch. We carry more than ourselves on this mission. We carry the hopes, dreams, and history of all humanity." 200 million miles away, on a large space station orbiting Jupiter, alien eyes watched the human preparations with amusement. Ambassador Cluthax of the Axorian Empire flicked his scaled tail as he observed the primitive vessel on the monitoring screen. His translator converted his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common for his companions. "Look at this," he said to the other council representatives gathered in the hidden observation post. "The humans have built only one ship." Ambassador Zoril of the Medusan Consortium leaned forward, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "One ship. Do they truly believe they can join interstellar society with a single vessel? Their world dies, yet they waste resources on this toy," added Representative Vishna of the Trilarian Union. "Our studies show they have not even discovered proper gravity manipulation." Laughter filled the room, sounds that ranged from deep rumbles to high-pitched trills, depending on the biology of each alien species. The 17 races of the Galactic Council had watched Earth for centuries, cataloging human violence, pollution, and technological stumbles. "When do they launch?" asked Zoril. "Their countdown indicates 12 Earth hours," replied Cluthax. "I propose we send a patrol vessel to intercept them once they clear their solar system. Standard procedure for first contact with primitive species." "Agreed," said the others. Back on Earth, Susan Hayes gave the order to seal all hatches. Final preparations began for launch. In her private quarters, she looked at the small photo of her family, all gone now, like so many others. She tucked it into her uniform pocket, over her heart. "Captain to the bridge," came Alan's voice over the intercom. "Launch sequence initiating." Susan took one last look around the small room that would be her home for years, maybe forever. "We're coming, stars," she whispered. "Ready or not." The Defiant's engines hummed to life. On the bridge, Susan sat in the command chair. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders. "Take us up, Mr. Nelson," she ordered the pilot. "Yes, Captain." The last ship of Earth broke free from gravity's pull and soared toward the stars, carrying the final hopes of a dying world. The galaxy laughed. The humans had sent one ship. They would not be laughing for long. 3 months passed aboard the Defiant. The crew settled into routines. Scientists worked in labs. Engineers checked systems. The small hydroponics garden grew fresh vegetables. Life continued in the metal box flying through the darkness of space. Susan Hayes sat in her office reviewing reports when the alarm sounded. "Captain, to the bridge." Alan Mitchell's voice came through the speaker. "We have a contact." Susan ran to the bridge. The crew stood at their stations, faces tense. "Report," she ordered. "Large object at coordinates 227 Mark IV, said John Nelson from the pilot's seat, "moving toward us at high speed." Natalie Summers worked at her communications console. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions. Hundreds of different signals on frequencies we've never used." The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone gasp. A massive ship approached them. It had a strange crystal shape with glowing sections. It was at least 20 times larger than the Defiant. "Defensive systems online," said Rebecca Foster, the security chief. "Hold fire," Susan ordered. "This is what we hoped for." "First contact." Natalie pressed her hand to her earpiece. "The signals are changing. I think they're trying to communicate with us." The ship's AI system analyzed the patterns. After several minutes, it began to translate the alien transmissions. "They're hailing us," Natalie said. Susan straightened her uniform. "Put it on screen." The image changed to show a being unlike anything they had ever seen. It had a crystalline face with features that reminded Susan of cut gemstones. When it moved, light played across its surface. "Humans." The alien spoke, its mouth moving strangely with the words. "Your presence is acknowledged. I am Commander Zexavol of the Pellerin Guard, representing the Galactic Council." Susan stepped forward. "I am Captain Susan Hayes of the Earth ship Defiant. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life." The alien's features shifted in what might have been a smile, but it did not look friendly. "Your vessel has been categorized as a Class 7 primitive exploration craft," Zexavol said. "You may proceed to the nearest trade station for evaluation, though the Council advises you to return to your homeworld. The galaxy is no place for single-ship species." Susan felt her crew watching her. "We appreciate your concern, Commander, but Earth is no longer an option for us. We seek peaceful contact and a new beginning." The alien seemed to study her for a moment. Then the transmission ended with a sound that sounded very much like laughter. "They cut the connection," Natalie said. Alan moved beside Susan. "What now, Captain?" "We follow them to this trade station. It's why we came." The alien ship sent coordinates, and the Defiant changed course. As they traveled, Susan called a meeting in the conference room with her senior staff. "Opinions?" she asked when they had all gathered. "They're testing us," Rebecca said, "seeing how we react." "They're also underestimating us," said Scott Williams. "Did you hear how he called us primitive?" Maria Rodriguez, the ship's diplomat, nodded. "That could work in our favor. If they don't see us as a threat, they might share more information." "What about this Galactic Council?" Alan asked. "Sounds like we're dealing with an established political system. A system that clearly doesn't think much of newcomers with only one ship," Susan said. Scott cleared his throat. "Captain, there's something else. I've been studying our engine readings since the alien ship approached. The Garcia drive is acting. Strangely." "Strangely how?" "The energy output fluctuated when they scanned us, almost like our drive was responding to their technology. I need to run more tests. But I think there's something about our engine they can't detect properly." Susan considered this. "Keep it quiet for now. If we have an advantage, let's understand it before revealing anything." The meeting ended, and Susan returned to the bridge. The huge alien ship glided silently ahead of them, leading them deeper into the unknown. Behind her, the crew worked with renewed purpose. They were not just explorers now. They were humanity's representatives to a galaxy that already judged them as lesser beings. The trade station appeared in the distance, a massive structure that shimmered like a jewel against the blackness of space. The future waited there, for better or worse. The trade station grew larger in the view screen as the Defiant approached. It looked like a giant metal flower with petals stretched out into space. Lights blinked across its surface. Hundreds of ships of different sizes and shapes moved around it. "It's beautiful," whispered Natalie from her communication station. Susan nodded. "And busy. Look at all those ships." "We're receiving docking instructions," Ellen reported. "They've assigned us to the Outer Ring, Section 42. "Take us in slowly, Mr. Nelson," Susan ordered. As the Defiant moved toward its assigned dock, the crew stared at the alien vessels they passed. Some were tiny, barely larger than Earth shuttles. Others were massive, stretching for miles. The humans had never felt so small. "Captain, I need to see you in engineering." Scott's voice came over the intercom. "Right away." Susan glanced at Alan. "Take the bridge. I'll be back before we dock." She hurried down to engineering, where she found Scott hunched over a console, his face pale. "What's wrong?" she asked. Scott pointed to the screen. "The Garcia drive. I've figured out what it's doing." He pulled up a series of readings that showed energy waves unlike anything in their training. "Our engine doesn't just bend space like we thought," Scott explained. "It's creating what I call dimensional resonance, like tiny tears in reality that instantly heal themselves." "Is it dangerous?" Susan asked. "Not to us, but the energy output is off any scale I've ever seen." Scott looked at her with wide eyes. "Captain, I don't think the aliens can detect it properly because it operates on principles they've never encountered." Susan considered this. "So we have technology that might be unique." "More than unique, it might be revolutionary." Scott lowered his voice. "Dr. Garcia was either a madman or a genius. Maybe both. He built an engine that works on principles even he might not have fully understood." Before Susan could respond, the ship jolted slightly. "We've docked," she said. "Keep working on this. And Scott, this stays between us and the senior staff for now." "Yes, Captain." Susan returned to the bridge as final docking procedures completed. A message appeared on the main screen inviting a delegation from Earth to enter the station. "Alan, Rebecca, Maria, you're with me," Susan decided. "Natalie, you and Scott stay aboard and continue studying those transmissions. Learn everything you can." The four humans walked through the airlock and into the trade station. They entered a vast hall filled with more alien species than they could count. Some had multiple arms. Others floated on cushions of air. A few looked almost like humans, but with subtle differences. "Stay close," Susan whispered to her team. A tall figure approached them. It had blue skin that shimmered like water and large eyes that blinked sideways. "Welcome to Trade Station Epsilon 9, it said in a melodic voice. "I am Guide Trell. I will assist the Earth delegation." "Thank you," Susan replied. "We're honored to be here." Trell led them through crowded corridors. Aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed. Others whispered to each other. "You are the first humans to visit a council facility," Trell explained. "Many are curious." "And some are more than curious," Rebecca noted quietly, nodding toward a group watching them with what looked like disgust. Trell brought them to a large chamber with a circular table. Representatives from different species sat around it. "The reception committee," Trell announced. "They will process your arrival and assign your species classification." An alien with green scales and a long neck spoke first. "Humans, you have been permitted temporary visitation rights. We understand your world is in crisis, which explains your primitive approach to space travel." Susan stepped forward. "Earth thanks the Council for receiving us." The scaled alien continued. "We have studied your ship. Your technology is basic but functional. You will be classified as a Category 3 species, pre-galactic development stage." "What does that classification mean for us?" Maria asked diplomatically. Another alien, this one with multiple eyes arranged in a circle, answered. "It means you may observe but not participate in council affairs. You may apply for refugee status on approved worlds. Your genetic material will be preserved." Susan felt her heart sink. They weren't being welcomed as equals. They were being processed like an endangered species. And who would control Earth if we accept this classification? She asked. The Medusan Consortium has already been granted developmental rights to your solar system. The scaled alien replied casually. Of course, your people would be treated fairly as a protectorate species. The humans exchanged glances. Their world was already being divided up. They had traveled all this way only to end Earth had already been claimed by aliens who saw humans as primitives to be managed. Susan straightened her back. There had to be another way. That night, the human delegation gathered in private quarters assigned to them on the station. The rooms were small and plain, clearly meant for lesser species. They've already decided our fate, Rebecca said angrily. Earth isn't even ours anymore, according to them. Susan paced the floor. There has to be a way to change our status. Maria, what did you learn from the databases they gave us access to? Maria pulled out a small tablet. Not much. Most information is restricted for Category 3 species, but I did find something interesting about council membership. The others gathered around as she showed them images of a massive ceremony. Every new species that joins the council as a full member goes through something called the Trial of Ascension, Maria explained. It's a series of tests. Tests we could take? Ellen asked. Technically, yes. Any species can challenge for membership, Maria frowned. But no species has successfully completed it in over 3,000 years. The last ones to try were the Arcadians, and they only passed 2 of the 3 trials. What are these trials? Susan asked. A test of technological innovation, a test of military prowess, and a test of cultural significance, Maria read. Win all 3, and a species gets a seat at the council table immediately. Lose any, and what? Rebecca prompted. Maria looked up grimly. And they become a permanent protectorate of their challenging sponsor. In our case, that would be the Medusans. The room fell silent as they considered the stakes. So we either win our freedom or lose it forever, Alan said quietly. Most species take centuries to even apply, Maria added. It's considered impossible for newly discovered civilizations. Susan stopped pacing. They expect us to back down, to accept their charity and give up our independence. What other choice do we have? Ellen asked. We're one ship against an entire galactic civilization. Before Susan could answer, there was a soft chime at their door. Rebecca checked the security screen. It's not one of the council races, she reported. Different species. Shorter, with purple skin. Susan nodded. Let them in, but stay alert. The door slid open to reveal a small alien with delicate features and large, intelligent eyes. It wore simple robes and carried no visible weapons. Greetings, humans, it said in a gentle voice. I am Elon of the Arcadian Collective. May I enter? Susan gestured to a seat. Please, what brings you to us? Elon glanced around nervously. I come without official sanction. My people have been watching your reception by the council. We disagree with how you are being treated. You're the Arcadians who attempted the trials, Maria said. Elon nodded. Yes, we failed the final test and now serve as researchers and historians for the council. We have little political power, but we have knowledge. Why help us? Rebecca asked suspiciously. Because we believe the council has grown stagnant. The 17 ruling races fear change and new ideas. Elon leaned forward. Your ship arrived and disrupted their comfortable universe. They laugh, but some are afraid. Afraid of one small ship? Ellen asked. Afraid of what you represent. Your species crossed the void in a single vessel, risking everything. Such determination is rare and unpredictable. Elon's eyes gleamed. The council would rather keep you dependent than risk the change you might bring. Susan studied their visitor. What are you suggesting? Challenge them, Elon said simply. Demand the trial of ascension. They will not expect it. Their surprise will give you advantage. The trials are meant to be impossible, Maria pointed out. No, Elon shook his head. They are meant to be impossible for primitive species. but I have studied your ship from public records. Your drive system, it contains principles even the Council's top scientists might not understand. Susan exchanged glances with her team. Their engine's secret was apparently not as hidden as they thought. Do you know about dimensional resonance? Scott asked carefully. I know that your engine creates energy patterns unlike anything in Council records, Elon replied. That alone might be enough for the first trial. Susan stood up. If we challenge them and fail, we lose everything. You have already lost everything, Elon said softly. Earth belongs to the Medusans now. Unless you challenge that decision. The humans looked at each other. The alien was right. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. We'll need to know more about these trials, Susan said. Elon nodded. I will help you prepare. The Council meets again tomorrow. That is when you must make your challenge. As their unexpected ally began explaining the trial protocols, Susan felt a spark of hope ignite. The galaxy had laughed when humans sent one ship. Perhaps it was time to show them what that one ship could do. The Council chamber was massive. 17 great seats formed a circle on raised platforms. Below them, hundreds of lesser seats held representatives from client species. Susan and her team stood in the center of the chamber, feeling small but determined. The human delegation may address the Council, announced a computerized voice. Susan stepped forward. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, on behalf of Earth and humanity, I formally request that we be allowed to undertake the trial of ascension. The chamber erupted in sounds. Some aliens laughed. Others shouted in their strange languages. The scaled representative leaned forward. Captain Hayes, perhaps you misunderstand. The trial is not for species at your development level. It would be unkind to let you attempt it. We understand the risks, Susan replied firmly. And we formally challenge the Medusan claim on Earth. We will represent ourselves in the trials. A large alien with 4 arms and red skin stood. This is unprecedented. A single ship species demanding Council rights. The laws are clear, came a melodic voice. An Arcadian representative, not Elon, but clearly a supporter, spoke from one of the lesser seats. Any species may challenge. There are no restrictions based on development category. The Council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the scaled alien spoke again. Very well. The humans may attempt the trial. The first test will begin tomorrow at the engineering nexus. You may bring 3 representatives. And if we pass? Susan asked. Then you may attempt the second trial. The alien replied with a sound like a hiss. But do not expect to get that far. Back on the Defiant, Scott, Kevin Morrison, and Linda Parker prepared for the first trial. Scott had spent the night studying the data Elon had provided about the engineering nexus. It's a massive structure orbiting a neutron star, Scott explained to Susan. The test involves stabilizing a quantum singularity. A black hole, Ellen asked, alarmed. A tiny one, Scott clarified. Created specifically for the test. Every species has tried to contain it using force fields or gravity generators. And they all failed. Susan asked. Not exactly. The Medusans passed by creating a containment system that lasted for 14 hours. The record. Scott looked at Kevin, who specialized in AI systems. But I think we can do better. How? Susan asked. By not fighting the singularity, Kevin explained. According to our tests, the Garcia drive doesn't just bend space, it communicates with it. We're going to try something no one has tried before. The next day, Susan watched nervously as Scott, Kevin, and Linda stood before a panel of alien scientists at the engineering nexus. At the center of the testing chamber floated a tiny black dot that seemed to eat the light around it. The quantum singularity is unstable, announced the chief scientist, an Exorian with gleaming crystal features. Your task is to stabilize it using only the materials provided. You have 6 hours to prepare your solution. The aliens provided basic tools and materials. Scott's team worked quietly, building what looked like a ring of small devices around the singularity. "What are they doing?" Susan whispered to Alan as they watched from an observation area. "I'm not sure. But Scott said something about teaching the singularity to dance with itself." Hours passed. Other alien observers began to lose interest, clearly expecting failure. Then Scott signaled they were ready. "Our solution is in place," he announced to the judges. "You may activate it," the Axorian scientist said with obvious doubt. Kevin pressed a series of controls. The devices around the singularity began to pulse with energy. The black dot at the center started to spin, then stabilized perfectly, no longer pulling at the space around it. The alien scientists stared in shock. Their instruments showed readings they had never seen before. "What is this?" demanded the Axorian. "What have you done?" "We created a controlled feedback loop," Morrison explained, "using dimensional resonance to teach the singularity to maintain its own stability." This cannot. Your mathematics shouldn't," the alien sputtered. "Different approach," Scott said with a shrug. "Sometimes being the new kid has advantages." The judges conferred urgently among themselves. Finally, the Axorian turned back to the humans. "The test is passed," he announced reluctantly. "The singularity is stable. Your solution exceeds all previous records." Susan felt her heart soar. They had passed the first trial. The humans had surprised the galaxy. That evening, she noticed a change in how the alien representatives regarded her crew. The laughter had stopped, replaced by something new: wariness. "They're not underestimating us anymore," Alan observed. "Good," Susan replied. "Now we prepare for the second trial. And it's going to be much harder." Word of the human success spread quickly through the station. Some aliens now watched them with interest instead of scorn. Others seemed angry that these newcomers had passed the first trial. "The second trial is military," Rebecca explained during the planning meeting on the Defiant. "We have to defend a position against a Medusan battlecruiser." "A battlecruiser?" Alan looked worried. "Our weapons are defensive at best." "The rules say we can't use lethal weapons," Rebecca continued. "But we can use our shields and engines without limits." Susan turned to John Nelson, their pilot. "John, how maneuverable is the Defiant with the Garcia drive?" The pilot smiled. "With Scott's modifications, more maneuverable than anything I've ever flown." "Good, because I have a plan that doesn't involve outgunning them." 3 days later, Susan, John, and Rebecca stood on the Defiant's bridge. Through the view screen, they could see their target, a small space station floating in an asteroid field. The council representatives watched from a safe distance. A massive Medusan ship appeared from behind a large asteroid. It was at least 3 times the size of the Defiant, with weapons ports visible along its hull. "Captain Hayes," came the voice of Admiral Vrax, the Medusan commander. "The rules are simple. We will attempt to capture the target station. You will defend it. Non-lethal weapons only." "Understood, Admiral," Susan replied calmly. "We are ready." "They expect us to set up a defensive position around the station," Rebecca observed. "Then let's surprise them," Susan said. "John, prepare the modified jump sequence we practiced. Scott, is the drive ready?" "Ready, Captain," Scott's voice came from engineering. "The dimensional resonance is stable. But remember, we can only do this 5 times before we need to let the system cool down." "5 should be enough," Susan said. "Begin on my mark." The Medusan ship moved toward them, firing warning shots that dissipated harmlessly against the station's shields. "They're testing our response," Rebecca said. "Let them come closer," Susan ordered. "Wait for it." The battlecruiser approached confidently, clearly expecting an easy victory. "Now," Susan commanded. John activated the drive. The Defiant seemed to flicker and vanish, reappearing instantly behind the Medusan ship. "Fire disruptors," Susan ordered. Rebecca launched a pulse that shook the larger vessel but caused no real damage. Before the Medusans could respond, John activated the drive again. The Defiant vanished and reappeared above the battlecruiser. What is happening? They heard Admiral Vrak's demand over the comm system. Where are they? Their targeting systems can't lock onto us, Rebecca reported with satisfaction. Again and again, the Defiant jumped to new positions, firing brief pulses at the Medusan ship. Each time, they appeared where the aliens least expected. What you're seeing isn't an illusion, Susan transmitted to the astonished observers. It's what happens when you underestimate human creativity. In the observation lounge, council members watched in stunned silence as the primitive human ship outmaneuvered one of their most advanced military vessels. Final jump, Scott warned from engineering. The drive needs to cool after this. Make it count, Susan told John. The Defiant appeared directly beneath the Medusan ship. Rebecca fired their strongest electromagnetic pulse directly at the battlecruiser's main power junction, a weakness Elon had identified for them. The massive ship's lights flickered and went dark. It drifted helplessly, temporarily disabled. Target neutralized, Rebecca announced. The observation panel erupted in chaos as council members argued about what they had just witnessed. The human ship had not just defended the target, it had disabled a premier council warship without firing a single destructive shot. Later, as the humans celebrated on the Defiant, they received an unexpected visitor. Admiral Vrax himself requested permission to come aboard. The Medusan commander was tall and imposing, with armor that seemed to shift colors as he moved. His face had no features except for 6 small eyes arranged in a circle. "You fought with honor and ingenuity," he told Susan. "No species has defeated my ship in 300 years." "Thank you, Admiral," Susan replied. Vrax leaned closer. "But the final trial will not be so easily conquered. The Guardians have never been impressed by physical achievements alone." "The Guardians?" Susan asked. "The founders of the Council," Vrax explained. "They ascended to another plane of existence millions of years ago. Only their automated systems remain, judging whether new species are worthy." As the Admiral left, Susan felt a new wave on her shoulders. They had passed 2 trials through skill and technology. But what would the 3rd trial demand of them? "Captain," Alan said quietly, "what do you think the final test will be?" Susan looked at her crew, tired but proud. "I don't know, but whatever it is, we'll face it together." The final trial would take place on a world called the Crucible. As the Defiant approached the planet, the crew gathered on the bridge. Through the view screen, they saw a perfect sphere that shimmered with a blue-green light. "No natural formations," observed Linda Parker, studying the sensor readings. "The entire planet is artificial." "Artificial?" Susan asked. "The whole planet?" "Yes, created millions of years ago by the Guardians." Linda looked up from her console. "Captain, this is beyond any technology we've ever imagined." When they entered orbit, a signal came from the surface. A soft voice spoke in perfect English. "Human vessel Defiant, you have passed 2 trials. The final test awaits. Send your representatives to the coordinates we are transmitting." Susan selected her team carefully. Herself, Alan, Maria, Scott, and Linda. They took a shuttle to the surface and landed in a vast empty plain. The ground beneath their feet was smooth and warm, like polished stone, but slightly yielding to their steps. A doorway of light appeared before them. They walked through it and found themselves in a huge circular chamber. The walls seemed to shift and move, showing images of stars and galaxies. "Welcome, humans," said a voice all around them. A being of pure light appeared in the center of the room. It had no definite shape but gave the impression of great age and wisdom. "I am the Guardian Interface." "We are honored," Susan replied, trying to hide her awe. "You seek to join the Council as equals," the light being stated. "Many species demonstrate intelligence. Few demonstrate wisdom. Why should humans join the galactic community when you could not even save your own world?" Before Susan could answer, the chamber changed. Suddenly, each human found themselves alone in a different environment. Susan stood on Earth, in her childhood home. Her family sat at the dinner table, smiling and inviting her to join them. But when she looked out the window, she saw the Defiant hovering in the sky, waiting for her decision. "You can stay," a voice whispered. "Live the life you lost, or continue your mission and never see them again." Susan reached toward her family, tears in her eyes. Then she straightened her back and turned toward the window. "They're gone," she said firmly. "This isn't real. My place is with my crew, completing our mission." The scene dissolved. Alan found himself as the captain of his own ship, with Earth rebuilt and prosperous behind him. All he had to do was agree to share human technology with the Medusans. "We'd be safe under their protection," a voice suggested. "No need to fight anymore." Alan shook his head. "Safety without freedom isn't safety at all. Humanity must stand on its own." The scene changed. Maria saw humans spread across the galaxy, but they had lost all traces of Earth culture. Their art, music, and history replaced by alien traditions. "Adaptation is necessary for survival," whispered a voice. "Not at the cost of who we are," Maria replied. "We can learn from others without losing ourselves." Scott faced a nightmare. His engine design had been weaponized, destroying entire worlds. "Your invention brings only death," accused the voice. "No technology is good or evil," Scott argued. "It depends on how we choose to use it. I choose creation, not destruction." Linda saw a future where humanity was studied like specimens, their biology and psychology dissected for the Council's knowledge. "We are not lab animals," she stated firmly. "We are explorers and creators. We seek to contribute, not to be used." Suddenly, they all stood together again before the light being. It seemed brighter now, almost thoughtful. "Interesting," it said. "In 3 million years, no species has ever acknowledged their fundamental flaws as part of their petition. All others claimed perfection or superiority. We're far from perfect," Susan admitted. "Earth's story is one of both triumph and tragedy. But what makes humans different is that we learn from our mistakes. We adapt. We overcome." "We sent one ship," Alan added, "not because we're primitive, but because we put everything we had into this one chance. Every idea, every hope, every dream of humanity lives within us," Maria said. "We don't ask for pity or special treatment. We ask only for the opportunity to contribute to this galaxy's story." The light beam grew brighter. The Defiant returned to Trade Station Epsilon 9 with the key of Ascension. News of their success spread throughout the galaxy. The impossible had happened. A single ship species had earned Council membership. The Council chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of worlds. The 17 main seats were all filled as Susan Hayes and her crew entered. Even the Medusans and Exorians, who had most strongly opposed them, sat in respectful silence. The scaled alien, whose name they now knew was High Ambassador Clofax, spoke first. "Captain Hayes of Earth, you have completed the Trial of Ascension, a feat not accomplished in 3,000 years. The Council acknowledges your right to representation." Susan stepped forward with the crystal key. It glowed brightly in her hand, responding to the chamber's energy. "Place the key in the center pedestal," Clofax instructed. Susan walked to the middle of the room and set the crystal in a small depression on the pedestal. The key flared with light, and a new seat materialized among the Council circle, a simple but elegant chair bearing the symbol of Earth. Maria Rodriguez, as the ship's diplomat, stepped forward to sign the Charter of Ascension. Her hand was steady as she wrote humanity on the ancient document. "The humans have demonstrated exceptional qualities," announced the Arcadian High Minister. "Their unique perspective will bring valuable insight to our deliberations." Not everyone was pleased. The Medusan representatives protested, arguing that the trials had been compromised. "A species that has not even mastered simple gravity control cannot possibly have passed legitimately," insisted one Medusan counselor. Admiral Vrax, standing nearby, silenced his fellow Medusan with a gesture. "I witnessed their prowess myself. They won fairly, using methods we had not considered. Perhaps that is exactly why the Council needs their voice. Susan addressed the chamber. We come seeking friendship and knowledge. Earth may have faltered, but humanity is more than one world. We bring with us our creativity, our determination, and our willingness to learn from both our triumphs and our mistakes. The Council voted, and by a margin of 12-5, humanity was officially granted full Council membership. The Defiance crew celebrated that night, joined by their Arcadian allies and even a few curious representatives from other species. What happens now? Alan asked Susan as they watched the celebration. Now we send a message back to Earth, she replied, and we prepare for a return mission. 6 months later, the Defiant led a Council expedition back to Earth. Susan stood on the bridge, watching her home planet grow larger on the view screen. She had worried about what they might find. To their surprise, Earth was healing. The skies had begun to clear as nature reclaimed abandoned cities. Sensors detected fewer toxins in the atmosphere and oceans. The few million humans who had remained behind had formed small, sustainable communities. Life adapts, Linda Parker observed, just like we did. In orbit, they found something unexpected, the beginning frame of a new ship. The survivors had not given up hope of reaching the stars again. Using communication equipment provided by the Council, Susan contacted the largest human settlement. The faces that appeared on the screen showed amazement and joy at seeing the Defiant return. We thought you were lost, said the settlement leader, but we kept building, kept hoping. We're not lost, Susan replied. We found a place for humanity among the stars. 2 years later, Earth's second ship launched, carrying diplomats, scientists, and explorers to take their place in galactic society. It incorporated both Earth's renewed determination and advanced technologies shared by their new allies. As Susan watched from the Council chamber on Epsilon 9, she thought about how far they had come. The new ship joined a growing fleet under Earth's banner. Humans now served on Council research teams, exploring the galaxy alongside other species. In the Grand Council room, Earth's seat stood equal among the others. Above it hung a small plaque with the image of the Defiant and words that had become humanity's motto among the stars. Never underestimate a species that puts everything into one perfect shot at the stars. The galaxy had laughed when humans sent one ship. No one was laughing now.